Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the polls for Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net, also carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker Sports hopes and dreams will come true. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're recording a show, make sure you turn off your phone. But I digress. It's just science. If you're like me and you're happy about seeing smash mouth football, our offensive and defensive lines dominating on Saturday, hopefully we can do it again versus Iowa. I want to see us do it again. Let's do it again, ladies and gentlemen, versus Iowa. And all those stupid bad streaks I've had to talk about for so long, going back to 2016, then 2012 versus Wisconsin. Some of them were going back to 0-4. Now being over. Those stupid streaks now being over and being reminded on Saturday, okay, of Dylan Raiola's incredibly bright future, and particularly, potentially, with Dana Holgorsen over the next couple years. Then smash that like button. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell. Going to be doing a special edition Carriker Chronicles on Monday because of the short week in the game on Friday versus Iowa. Then a game prediction on Tuesday, our normal Tuesday show coming up. And then our Sunday morning, we'll do the gut reaction Friday, as always, late at night after the game. But then our next show after that will be Sunday morning, not Sunday night. And then December is going to be all over the place with recruiting, transfer portal talk, potential coaching changes, whatever happens there, bowl game info. So make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell because it's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun over the next month. You don't want to miss any of the fun stuff that we're putting out here on the Carriker Chronicles. Now, Nebraska football, as you know, has reached bowl eligibility. The Huskers beat the Wisconsin Badgers 44-25 on Saturday inside good old Memorial Stadium, which was getting pretty amped, I might add, as the game went along, getting more and more amped throughout the game. Nebraska improves to 6-5 on the year as Wisconsin falls to 5-6. This is the first bowl eligible season for the Big Red since 2016, although we actually could have gone to a bowl game in 2020. If players opt out of this bowl game, I will have thought, because we chose not to go to a bowl game in 2020, and I was one of the few people that said, no, this isn't cool, and that still pisses me off to this day. But I digress. You know, like a year later, or maybe it was that year, I didn't take the time to look it up, Rutgers was not supposed to go to a bowl game. Another team backed out of the bowl game. They went to the bowl game, which is why we're the only team that hadn't been to a bowl game in so long. And they got killed, but that's beside the point. All right, Nebraska, the Huskers tallied 473 total yards of offense, including 293 yards through the air from Dylan Raiola. Emmett Johnson led the ground attack with 113 yards on Saturday. Dante Dowdell ran for 41 yards and 3 touchdowns. And when Nebraska went up 34-10 in the third quarter, I was like, wow, I feel really good about this. Like they had officially put the game out of reach. Wisconsin kept fighting back, but it just had a different vibe, a different feel to it, the game did on Saturday. Heinrich Haarberg scored the first touchdown of the day on Saturday with a 5-yard touchdown run on the opening series for the Huskers. His first rushing touchdown of the season, which is asinine, by the way, but better late than never, in the 6th of his career. True freshman receiver Jacory Barney caught 9 passes for 85 yards in the game, setting career highs in both categories and marking his 4th game this season with at least 5 catches. Barney increased his season receptions total to 49, setting a record for catches by a true freshman, bettering the 40 receptions by Wan'Dale Robinson in 2019. Barney's 49 catches ranks 2nd overall among all freshmen in school history, trailing only J.D. Spielman, who has 55 receptions as a redshirt freshman, who had 55 receptions as a redshirt freshman in 2017. Sophomore running back Dante Dowdell had a 12-yard rushing touchdown in the second quarter and a 3-yard rushing touchdown in the third quarter. He has a team-leading 10 rushing touchdowns this season and is the first Husker since 2019 with 10 rushing touchdowns in a season. It was Dedrick Mills in 2019. He had 10 as well. Senior receiver Jamal Banks caught his 3rd touchdown pass of the season in the second quarter and his first touchdown catch in 6 games. Place kicker John Hull made a 37-yard field goal to conclude the first half scoring, connected on a 45-yard field goal in the third quarter and a 26-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. Hull has now connected on 8 straight field goals. We now make field goals, ladies and gentlemen. Senior offensive tackle Bryce Benhart started his 52nd career game. He is tied with Ralph Brown for the most starts in Nebraska history by a non-kicker. He is 1 start away from the overall record holder, place kicker Alex Henry, who had 53 career starts. All right, Brian Buscini, senior Brian Buscini, averaged 50.5 yards per punt on 2 punts, with 1 punt downed inside the Badger 10-yard line. I believe it was the 3-yard line, if I remember correctly. Buscini is averaging 46.54. I had to go to 5.4. 46.54 yards per punt this season, just ahead of the school record of 46.51 yards per punt by Sam Cook in 2005. I don't remember if I've shared this on this show or not. Sam Cook is the only punter I've ever seen in my life at any level bench 315. Rep it out. Impressive, Sam. Captains for the game on Saturday, of course, they were all seniors. Bryce Benhart, Isaac Gifford, John Bullock, and Nash Hutmaker. I'm always curious just to see who the game captains are. That does mean something to me. All right, some final thoughts on the game from Saturday. Nebraska's 473 total yards of offense were its most since gaining 507 yards in the season opener against UTEP and marked the fourth time this season Nebraska topped 400 yards. The Huskers 108 yards, 180 rushing yards were its most since rushing for 223 in the season opener. Again, versus UTEP way too long ago. Ladies and gentlemen, Nebraska's 293 passing yards were its most since throwing for 297 versus Illinois. Defensively, Nebraska did not allow a rushing touchdown to the Badgers. The Huskers did not allow a rushing touchdown in their 7 home games this season. This year marked the first time Nebraska won an entire home season without allowing a rushing touchdown since 1939. I thought it said 93 at first. No, 1939. Running back Emmett Johnson rushed 16 times for a career high, 113 yards. I already mentioned that, bettering his previous high of 84 yards against Maryland in 2023. That was over a year ago. Johnson's 100-yard rushing game was the first by a Nebraska player this season, okay, and the first for the Huskers since quarterback Chubba Purdy rushed for 105 yards at Wisconsin last season. I mentioned Anthony Grant was the last running back to do it, okay, and that was last September, or 2 Septembers ago versus Louisiana Tech. This is the first 100-yard rushing game by anybody on Nebraska's team since Chubba Purdy did it 105 yards at Wisconsin a season ago. Johnson also caught 6 passes for a career high 85 yards in the game, eclipsing his previous high of 48 yards at Purdue earlier this season. Johnson finished with a career high 198 yards from scrimmage. Freshman quarterback Dylan RAIOLA completed 28 of 38 passes for 293 yards and 1 touchdown, marking his 6th 200-yard passing game this year and his first in 4 games, his 3rd game with at least 250 passing yards. RAIOLA has completed 72.3% of his passes in his last 2 games, the 2 games with Dana Holgorsen as the offensive coordinator. The previous 4 games before that, he was down around 60% completion percentage in those games. RAIOLA, just as a reminder, was 27-38 versus USC last week. Now, this is the first game all year, ladies and gentlemen, where Nebraska's played 4 full quarters. There hasn't been a game all year where they played 4 full quarters. It's been a half here, a half there, a quarter here, a quarter there. All right, the Huskers offense probably outplayed the defense a little bit on Saturday, and second half adjustments by our offensive staff were honestly pretty noticeable, and Nebraska's offense averaged 6.4 yards per play. Ooh, it's that yards per play stat. All right, that dreaded stat. 6.4 yards per play, by the way, would have tied us with Alabama and previously undefeated Army for 13th in the nation. Wisconsin averaged 7.4 yards per play against us Saturday, which would have tied them for first in the country with Miami. Also, it's incredibly hard to outscore your opponent all 4 quarters of a game. This is a kind of a unique stat, a weird stat I've always looked at ever since I was a kid. If a team wins like 42-10, I'll look at each quarter. Did they outscore them every quarter? Okay. Nobody ever talks about this, but it's always kind of been interesting to me. Even if a team wins 42-10, there's usually one quarter, a lot of times the fourth quarter, but usually one quarter where even the team that only scored 10 points outscored the other team that won. So on Saturday, Nebraska outscored Wisconsin in the second quarter 17-3, third quarter 10-7, fourth quarter 10-8. Now, when it comes to the fourth quarter specifically, this is the first time Nebraska had outscored Wisconsin in a fourth quarter since 2016. Every year since, except 2020 when the game was canceled, Wisconsin had outscored Nebraska in the fourth quarter, check this stat, by a combined margin of 50-14 over the years. The score was tied 7-7 after the first quarter, on Saturday. So we didn't outscore them the first quarter, but they didn't outscore us in a single quarter on Saturday, including the fourth quarter and second and third quarters as well. Obviously, in other words, Nebraska came with a good game plan, made in-game adjustments, and took over the game physically in the second half, which was probably my personal favorite part of the game. Nebraska scored 24 points in the first half and 20 points in the second half, and Nebraska played for 4 full frickin' quarters. I got some thoughts. I always have thoughts. But before I dive into those, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. As always, ladies and gentlemen, they are your concrete experts. They are your retaining wall experts. Nobody does a better job than them. If this is the type of work you need done, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is the type of work you do, Jason Armstrong's always looking for quality workers. If you do a good job, go to dpsconstruction.net. Ask for Jason Armstrong. Tell him Adam sent you. Also, Bonzo Pool and Spa. Check them out at bonzopool.com. As I've mentioned, they've done my family's pool. They put in our hot tub. They take care of the hot tub, the pool. If you have a sauna, you can get it put in. If you haven't and need it taken care of, they will take care of it. Go to PonsvillePool.com, ask for Jeff, and tell him that Adam sent you. Now, I tried to think back to the best halves of football our offense has played this year. And the two halves that stood out to me right away, first half of Colorado and second half of Purdue. We scored 28 points in each one of those halves. The second half of Colorado and the first half of Purdue combined 0 points, but I digress. Okay, but the only other game or half that I could think of, and then I went and looked up to back all this up. Okay, I did some research, a lot of research actually. But the only other half or game that I could think of that could be in this conversation was UTEP. Okay, we scored 30 points in the first half of UTEP, but ladies and gentlemen, come on, it's UTEP. All right, they're one of the 5 or 10 worst teams in the country. Yeah. So not even the first half of Northern Iowa qualified for this conversation, okay, as far as best halves of football played on offense. I kind of eliminated UTEP, with all due respect, because they're UTEP. I was looking more for Power 4 competition, and we're just going to continue to pretend that the Big 12 and ACC are powered conferences like the SEC and Big 10, at least for now, I guess. But even the first half of Northern Iowa didn't qualify because we only scored 21 points. So I compared our 2 best halves on offensive football this year to just the Wisconsin game. Just the 4 quarters of the Wisconsin game. All right, and even though we scored more points in the first half of Colorado and the second half of Purdue combined, 56 points total. All right, again, 28 in the first half of Colorado and 28 in the second half of Purdue. Saturday's 4 quarters versus Wisconsin was still more impressive, and here's why. We had more total yards in the 4 quarters versus Wisconsin than in the 2 halves that I'm talking about versus Colorado and Purdue. And we scored more actual offensive points versus Wisconsin. We scored 44 points on offense versus Wisconsin those 4 quarters. We scored 42 actual offensive points versus Colorado in the first half, Purdue in the second half. All right, remember, Tommy Hill had that pick 6 versus Colorado, and John Bullock had a 35-yard interception return, a pick 6 for a touchdown versus Purdue. Do you remember this? Purdue, okay, 1 in freaking 10 Purdue, I might add, actually led 3-0 over Nebraska until the Huskers finally scored with 2:49 left in the third quarter to get on the board, finally. So I could argue the first half of Colorado, where we led 28-0 and won 28-10, okay, which was the final. And honestly, I can't even count the whole second half versus Purdue. Really just the final 17 minutes and 49 seconds versus Purdue were our quote-unquote best offensive outputs of the entire year. And we scored 42 combined points on offense, but we had more total yardage versus Wisconsin. We scored more actual points per just our offense, okay, versus Wisconsin. And our game control was much better versus Wisconsin on Saturday as well. Remember, Nebraska, when I talk about game control, they scored on 6 consecutive drives versus the Badgers. Versus Purdue, for example, Nebraska at one point had 6 straight drives into Boilermaker territory that resulted in 0 points, if you remember that. In all of these games, our defense contributed at times with shorter fields for the offense, so that was kind of a wash. All right, and it does help, you know, versus Wisconsin on Saturday that we make field goals now. But I've never seen a team turn around so quickly and so fast to such a degree like what Dana Holgorsen has done with our offense. Here's how I believe that he did it. There's 4 things that stand out to me. Number 1, common sense in utilizing your personnel efficiently. Some things to me just seemed obvious. If you've been following me all year long, everything I'm about to talk about, I've talked about throughout the year. It's not about me being right. It's about the changes he made, and they just made kind of common sense use of your personnel and their strengths. All right, so number 1, give Dylan RAIOLA less, not more. A young, talented player like Dylan RAIOLA needs to react and not think. Let his talent guide him until his experience catches up. Look at a guy like Jacory Barney, our most explosive playmaker. Get him the ball on more than just sweeps and end arounds. Also, by the way, our return game sucks, so let's put him back there. Love that idea. Emmett Johnson, he's our best running back. Stop falling in love with someone else and just start him already. Again, these are common sense things that took place. Heinrich Haarberg, utilize the weapons you have, including Haarberg and his unique skill set, and take pressure off Dylan RAIOLA in the process. Something we did on Saturday. And I know it's like, oh, Haarberg comes in the game, we're just going to run the ball. Oh, I guarantee there's other plays off that. They just didn't have to run them Saturday. Dante Dowdell, get him to run like a big freaking back, which he finally did Saturday, or don't put him in. If he'll run with veracity, he's a great short yardage and goal line back. which you saw Saturday. Things that I've mentioned throughout the season. All right, number 2, be honest and accountable with your players. I've had multiple coaches in my life, as you know. Some were yellers, some were screamers. Some were more teacher type, and they'd honestly whisper and you could barely hear them. People are like, what kind of a coach do you prefer, Adam? Don't care. Can I trust you? Are you honest? Do you hold everybody accountable and yourself accountable along with me while you're coaching me? So be honest and accountable with players. If it means being blunt, not rude, but honest, players can respect that. They'll also buy into what you're doing. Like, actually buy in. We've had talent all year. I've had some people tell me, no, we're just not that talented. BS. We've had talent all year, but we've been wildly unpredictable because talented players who are not bought in, their play will vary up and down more than a yo-yo. All right, number 3. The number 3 reason Dana Holgorsen was able to turn it around so fast and so shockingly much. All right, number 3, find an actual identity on offense. Now, I don't know that we have an entire one, but I see one forming already. All right, Husker fans, just a heads up. Dana Holgorsen wants to throw the ball more than he wants to run it. But at least what's being said from the podium will now match what we're trying to be on the field. Holgorsen will use the pass game as an extension of the run game, and he will pass to set up the run as well. Interesting tidbit here. As an offensive coordinator, just as an offensive coordinator, Dana Holgorsen has never had an offense that was worse than number 2 in passing in America in his career as an offensive coordinator. That being said, the Huskers offense in 2 games under Holgorsen as the OC is averaging 5 yards per carry. The previous 4 games, I mentioned this before, the previous 4 games, we're averaging 2.8 yards per carry. Okay, Dana Holgorsen's rush offenses over the decade, he's been calling plays for over a decade and a half. His rush offenses have averaged more rush yards per game than Nebraska's offenses had averaged through the first 9 games before he became the offensive coordinator. Number 4, and lastly, emphasizing playing with speed and physicality over having too many plays. That's it. Number 4 on my list, ladies and gentlemen, was fast and physical. Playing with speed and playing with physicality over emphasizing having too many plays. All right. Let's take a look. Bowl destinations. You got the Citrus Bowl, ReliaQuest Bowl, Mayo Bowl, Music City Bowl, Pinstripe Bowl, Guaranteed Rate Bowl, Quick Lane Bowl. You can see them all up on the screen. So when it comes to Big Ten Bowl tie-ins, there's 7 potential options. All right, here are the most likely landing spots right now, and it's still wide open. So here are the top 5. The ReliaQuest Bowl, December 31st, Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. Music City Bowl, December 30th. Nissan Stadium, Nashville. Pinstripe Bowl, December 28th in Yankee Stadium. I'll tell you right now, trying to take on a double team on the dirt at shortstop is not easy. I did it at Oakland, and I was on skates, ladies and gentlemen. The Rate Bowl, Chase Field in Phoenix on December 26th, and the Game Above Sports Bowl, December 26th, Fort Field in Detroit. Now, those are our options. The 5 most likely destinations. I do think Tampa. I do think Phoenix. Okay, and I do think the Music City Bowl, if you start to narrow it down a little bit more, are likely options. Maybe the one in Yankee Stadium, the Pinstripe Bowl as well. All right, our dream opponent. I've been asked, Adam, who's your dream opponent? For me, Oklahoma. We're 5-5. They're 6-5. Nebraska, Oklahoma, the rivalry, the program prestige in a bowl game. They might be 7-5. We might be 7-5. But think about this dream matchup. Brent Venerable's defense, which just shut down Alabama, I might add. Oh my God, what happened there? Lord have mercy. Father, we pray for... No, we can't be praying for Crimson Tide fans. We're not there yet. I prayed for Florida State fans earlier this year, and that was fair, but not ready for Crimson Tide fans. But Oklahoma's defense, led by Brent Venables versus Dana Holgorsen's offense. That potential matchup. All right, now, yes, I'm fully well aware that I'm wearing a Nebraska soccer shirt. Here on the Carriker Chronicles, ladies and gentlemen, we talk Husker sports and college football. On the Adam Carriker Show, which is a little bit longer, a little bit more often, we talk Husker sports, college football, general sports, and life in general. We spent the show the other day, about 20 minutes of it, debating when it's appropriate to start decorating the house for Christmas. I will openly take shots at the Yankees and the Dallas Cowboys. I always root for the underdog. But here on the Carriker Chronicles, we talk all Husker sports and college football. And I had no idea the soccer was going to be such a large part of my life when I had kids one day, but it is. But let's give a shout out. Nebraska Volleyball, number 2 in the country. All right, here's some of the teams that they've beaten. Lord have mercy. All right, number 3, Louisville. Number 5, Creighton. I'm just going to let that one sit there for a second. Number 5, Creighton. All right, number 6, Wisconsin, swept them twice. Number 7, Stanford. Number 8, Purdue. Number 9, Arizona State. Played SMU. Hopefully we see again in the tournament. Number 12, Kentucky. Number 13, Oregon. And they play number 4, Penn State on Black Friday. Talk about a murderer's row schedule for everyone who has to play Nebraska. Congrats to the senior class. They've won nearly 90% of their career matches. All right, shout out to Nebraska men's basketball. They go into Creighton's house and soundly beat the Blue Jays 74-63. Ladies and gentlemen, this was not a fluke. The Huskers held Creighton to 32% shooting and 28% from beyond the arc. Meanwhile, Nebraska shot 42% from the field, forced 17 Creighton turnovers, which gave the Huskers 22 points off turnovers to Creighton's 7 points that they forced and got off Nebraska's turnovers. That's a 15-point margin in favor of the good guys. Plus, the Huskers outscored Creighton in the paint 28-10, and their largest lead of the game at one point was 18 points. It's officially a red state, baby. All right, shout out to all Husker sports, including Husker wrestling, which is currently undefeated, number 4 in the country. Nebraska women's basketball. Congratulations to Creighton. You beat us in something, but here's the deal. Nebraska women's basketball going into the weekend was ranked number 21 in the country. I want to wish a speedy recovery to Natalie Potts, a sophomore forward who unfortunately tore her ACL. So speedy recovery, Natalie. Also, Alexis Markowski, all Big Ten the last 2 seasons, pre-team, first team, all Big Ten this year. Off to a hot start again, and freshman sensation Britt Prince has been playing very well so far, averaging nearly 15 points per game through her first 5 games as a Husker. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Carriker Chronicles is now year-round. I ain't taking the summer off. I ain't taking any time off except for random vacations here or there for a week or so. Check out CarrikerChronicles.com. When I say it's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true, ladies and gentlemen, it's just science. I mean it. Again, special edition Carriker Chronicles on Monday. There is a realistic world, not so far-fetched, where Nebraska's 7-5 with a top 15 recruiting class and going to a bowl game. One of those 3 things is already a fact, and I'll tell you why the other 2 aren't so far-fetched on Monday. Also, my weekly college football games recap, I'll put that out on Monday as well. It was an epic day of college football. Crazy day. 7 of the top 18 teams in the country went down, 2 undefeated teams lost, and a couple near upsets happened almost in addition to that. Then our regular Tuesday show, I'm going to have at least, the plan for now is I'm going to have 5 special guests with me as I give my preview and prediction for Iowa. All right, here are my questions for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answer in the comments below. We're going to put up Jordan Westerkamp. Shout out to Jordan Westerkamp, who recently just became a dad. All right, the field storming was such a Nebraska moment. Everyone calmly following the rules through one gate. Haha, greatest fans in college football. Are you cool with the fans storming the field after beating Wisconsin Saturday? Number 2, what bowl game do you want to go to? Number 3, who's your dream bowl opponent? Oh, I forgot. Will Dana Holgorsen be here next year? Nobody knows for sure, but my gut says yes. I might divulge a little bit more at a later time. He may get some offers. We clearly want him here. He's getting paid from Houston. I don't mind double paying him, but my gut says he's going to be here. Go, Big Red. And always remember to throw the bug.